He hadn't heard his daughters laugh in months. Something was destroying them from the inside, and he needed to know what. So Richard Ross did something desperate. He told his fiancée he was leaving town for 3 weeks, then disguised himself as the new gardener. On his first morning, he heard shouting from inside the house. He walked toward the sound, and what he saw through that doorway froze him where he stood. Richard's hands were shaking as he knocked on the back door at 6 a.m. A young woman answered. Brenda Thompson, the housemaid. She smiled warmly. "You must be Marcus. Come in." She walked him through the yard, showed him the tools, explained what needed to be done. He kept his head down, his voice rough, playing the part of a man who needed the work, but his heart was pounding, because somewhere inside that house were Ella and Grace, his 6-year-old twins, and he hadn't seen them smile in so long, he'd forgotten what it sounded like. Around 8 a.m., his fiancée Andrea appeared on the terrace in her silk robe. She looked him up and down like he was nothing. "So you're the new gardener," she said coldly. "Let's hope you're better than the last one." Richard kept his eyes on the ground. "I'll do my best, ma'am." She walked back inside without another word. He exhaled slowly. She didn't recognize him, not even close. He worked in silence for the next hour, trimming hedges near the side of the house, pulling weeds, staying alert. Then he heard it. A voice, sharp, angry, coming from inside. Richard set down his tools and moved closer. The sound was coming from the living room. He stepped up to the doorway and looked inside. Andrea stood in the middle of the room, towering over Grace. His daughter's small body was pressed against the wall, her hands trembling at her sides, her eyes wide with terror. Andrea grabbed Grace's wrist, not gently, not lovingly, and yanked her forward. "I told you to set the table before breakfast." Andrea's voice was ice and fire. "Are you stupid or just lazy?" Grace's lips trembled. "I forgot, Miss Andrea. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything." Andrea pulled her closer. "Your father breaks his back for you, and you can't do one simple thing, right?" Tears slid down Grace's cheeks. Across the room, Ella sat frozen on the couch, staring down at her lap, not moving, barely breathing. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," Andrea hissed. Grace lifted her chin, her whole body shaking. "That's better. Now get upstairs, both of you. No breakfast. Maybe hunger will teach you to think." The twins fled up the stairs, holding hands, silent as ghosts. Richard stood there in the doorway, frozen, his chest tight, his vision blurred. He'd suspected something was wrong, but seeing it, witnessing his daughters living in fear, being treated like prisoners in their own home, shattered something inside him. He wanted to scream, to tear off the beard, to charge inside and end this right now. But he couldn't. Not yet. He needed more. He needed proof. He needed the world to see what he was seeing. So he stepped back from the doorway, picked up his tools, and kept working. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking, and deep inside, something cold and hard settled into place. This was going to end. Soon. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever had to fight for someone who couldn't fight for themselves, this story is for you. Sometimes God puts us exactly where we need to be, even when it breaks us. "Stay with me." Daniel stared at him. "You want to do what?" "I'm going to tell Andrea I have to go to London. 3 weeks. Business meetings that can't be postponed." "And then?" Richard's voice dropped. "Then I'm coming back as someone else." Daniel set his coffee down slowly. "Rich, you're talking about disguising yourself, spying on your own fiancée. This is the only way I'll see the truth." Richard leaned forward. "She's different when I'm not around, Daniel. My daughters told me that, and I need to know what different means. You could hire a private investigator." "A stranger?" Richard shook his head. "Andrea would spot that in a heartbeat. She's too smart, too careful." Daniel rubbed his face. "So you're going to become, what? The gardener?" "Our gardener quit 2 weeks ago. The position's open. I'll apply through the agency Andrea uses." Richard's eyes hardened. "And I'll watch what happens when she thinks I'm gone." "This could blow up in your face." "I know. You could lose custody." "Lose everything." Richard's voice cracked. "I've already lost something. My daughters don't run to me anymore. They don't climb into my lap asking for stories. They barely speak." He looked out at the city. "If I do nothing and she's really hurting them, I'll never forgive myself." Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. "What do you need?" It took 3 days to disappear. Richard found Trevor Walsh, a British actor, struggling to pay rent, and hired him to make video calls pretending to be him. He went to a costume shop in Brooklyn, paid cash, left with a beard, skin makeup, brown contact lenses. He bought worn jeans and faded work shirts from a thrift store in Queens. Every night, he practiced in front of the mirror, lowering his voice, hunching his shoulders, moving like a man whose body had been shaped by years of hard labor. By the third night, standing in his bathroom at 2 a.m., he barely recognized himself. The beard aged him, the makeup weathered his skin, the contacts turned his blue eyes brown. He looked like someone life had beaten down. He looked like Marcus Webb, and it terrified him how easily Richard Ross disappeared. Telling Andrea was harder than he expected. They sat on the terrace at sunset, the sky burning orange. "I have to go to London," he said carefully. "The investors want face-to-face meetings. 3 weeks." Andrea's face stayed calm. Too calm. 3 weeks is a long time. "I know. I'm sorry." She smiled, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "It's fine. The girls and I will be fine. We'll finally have real time together." Richard's stomach twisted. "You sure you can manage everything?" "Of course." Her smile widened. "They're too dependent on you anyway. Some space will be good for them." That night, Richard pretended to sleep. Around midnight, Andrea got up. He heard her voice from the bathroom, low, pleased, thinking he couldn't hear. 3 whole weeks, finally. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. By the time he gets back, those girls will be completely different. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing. Richard's fists clenched under the blanket. Every word was a knife. The next morning before dawn, he stood between his daughters' beds. Ella stirred. Grace didn't wake. He knelt down and whispered into the quiet. "I'm not leaving you. I'm staying close. And I'm going to make this right. I promise." Then he walked out the front door for the last time, as Richard Ross. 2 hours later, he returned as Marcus Webb, parked 3 blocks away, put on the beard, the worn clothes, the brown contacts, looked in the mirror. Richard Ross was gone, and the man staring back was ready to see the truth, no matter how much it destroyed him. Richard knocked on the back door at exactly 6 a.m. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it would break through his chest. The door opened. A young woman stood there, late 20s, warm brown eyes, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. "You must be Marcus," she said, her smile genuine. "I'm Brenda. Come in." Richard kept his head down, his voice rough. "Morning, ma'am. Just Brenda is fine." She stepped aside to let him in. "Let me show you around." She walked him through the yard, pointing out the gardens, the fountain, the hedges that needed trimming. Her voice was kind, not the fake kind people use when they're trying to impress someone. Real kindness. "The previous gardener left suddenly," she said quietly. "No notice. Just stopped showing up." Richard filed that away. Had the last gardener seen something too? "I'll take good care of the place," he said. Brenda smiled. "I believe you." She showed him the tool shed, explained where everything was kept. As they walked back toward the house, she paused. "The children, Ella and Grace, they love the garden. Their mother used to garden with them before she—" Brenda's voice softened. "Before she passed." Richard's throat tightened. "I'll make sure it stays beautiful for them." Brenda looked at him with something like gratitude. "Thank you." Around 8 a.m., Andrea appeared. She stood on the terrace in her silk robe, coffee cup in hand, looking down at him like he was dirt on her shoe. "So you're the new gardener?" Richard kept his eyes down. "Yes, ma'am. Let's hope you're better than the last one. These hedges are a disaster." "I'll fix them, ma'am." She turned and walked back inside without another word. Richard exhaled slowly. She hadn't recognized him, not even a flicker. For the next hour, he worked near the house, trimming hedges, pulling weeds. Then he heard it. A voice, sharp, angry, coming from inside. He set down his tools and moved toward the sound. The living room. He stepped up to the doorway. What he saw made his blood freeze. Andrea stood over Grace, her face twisted with rage. Grace's small body pressed against the wall, trembling. "I told you to set the table before breakfast." Andrea's voice cut like broken glass. "Are you stupid or just lazy?" "I forgot, Miss Andrea." "Sorry doesn't fix anything. Andrea grabbed Grace's wrist and yanked her forward. Across the room, Ella sat frozen on the couch, staring at her lap, not moving. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Grace lifted her chin, tears streaming down her face. "Get upstairs, both of you. No breakfast. No breakfast. Maybe hunger will teach you." The twins fled, holding hands, silent. Richard stood frozen in the doorway, his hands shaking, his chest collapsing. This was real. Everything, Ella had whispered. That night, it was all real. He forced himself to step back, to pick up his tools, to keep working. But inside, he was screaming. 20 minutes later, Brenda came outside carrying 2 small sandwiches wrapped in napkins. She glanced toward the upper windows, then slipped back inside through the side door. Richard repositioned quietly. Through the window, he watched Brenda enter the twins' room. She handed them the sandwiches, whispered something he couldn't hear. Ella hugged Brenda's waist. Brenda stroked her hair, her face full of pain. Richard's throat burned. This woman, this stranger, was protecting his daughters, while he stood outside, helpless, watching through glass. That evening, back in his motel room, Richard sat on the edge of the bed. He pulled off the fake beard slowly. His skin was raw underneath. He stared at the recordings on his phone. Andrea's voice, cold and clear. "Your father breaks his back for you, and you can't do one simple thing, right?" He played it again and again. Each word burned deeper. His phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. "Miss you, darling. The girls are being so good. You'd be proud." Richard's hands curled into fists. He typed back, "Glad to hear it. Keep up the good work." Then he set the phone down and stared at the wall. 2 weeks. He had 2 more weeks to gather proof. 2 more weeks of watching his daughters suffer. 2 more weeks of being invisible. But when those 2 weeks were over, Andrea White would learn what happened when you hurt the wrong man's children. By day 5, Richard had stopped sleeping. Every night in that motel room, he'd lie awake replaying what he'd seen. Grace's trembling hands, Ella's hollow eyes, Andrea's cold smile, and Brenda, always Brenda, quietly standing between his daughters and the woman who was supposed to love them. That morning, he arrived at the house earlier than usual. The sun hadn't risen yet. The air was cool and still. He was trimming the roses near the side entrance when Brenda came out carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said softly, handing him one. Richard took it, surprised. "Thank you." They stood there in the grey morning light, not speaking. Finally, Brenda broke the silence. "You're not really just a gardener, are you?" Richard's heart stopped. "Ma'am, the way you look at this place, at the house, she paused, "at the children when they're in the yard. It's not how gardeners look at things." Richard kept his voice steady. "Just doing my job, ma'am." Brenda studied him. "You have kind eyes, Marcus, sad eyes, like you've lost something precious." He couldn't speak. She looked away. "I'm sorry, that was too personal." "No, you're right." Richard's voice came out rough. "I did lose something, a long time ago. A child," he nodded slowly. Not a complete lie. He was losing his children. Every day, a little more. Brenda's eyes filled with understanding. "That's why you care so much." "Yeah," he whispered. "That's why." They stood in silence, drinking their coffee as the sun began to rise. And for a moment, just a moment, Richard didn't feel completely alone. Later that morning, he witnessed something that nearly broke him. He was working near the playroom window when he heard Ella's voice, small and scared. "Miss Andrea, may I have my bunny back? The one Mummy gave me?" "That filthy old thing." Andrea's voice was sharp. "I threw it away. You're too old for toys like that." But it was Mummy's." "Your mother is gone, Ella. Gone. And the sooner you accept that, the better." Richard heard a soft sob. Then Ella's footsteps running up the stairs. He stood there, pruning shears frozen in his hand. That bunny had been Caroline's last gift to Ella before she died. Ella had slept with it every night for 2 years, and Andrea had thrown it away like garbage. 20 minutes later, Brenda appeared in the yard. She glanced around to make sure Andrea wasn't watching, then walked quickly to the trash bins behind the garage. Richard watched as she dug through the garbage. She pulled out a small stuffed bunny, dirty, stained, but intact. Brenda held it carefully, wiped it clean with her apron, then slipped back inside. Richard's vision blurred. This woman didn't know Ella and Grace were his daughters. She didn't know who he really was. But she was protecting them anyway, risking her job, her safety, everything, for children who weren't even hers. That evening, Richard sat under the oak tree, pretending to organize his tools. Brenda came out to water the flower beds nearby. They worked in silence for a while. Then Brenda spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's getting worse." Richard looked up. "Ma'am?" "Andrea." Brenda's hands shook slightly as she held the watering can. She used to hide it better, but now, it's like she doesn't care who sees. "Why don't you tell someone?" Brenda's laugh was bitter. "Tell who? Mr. Ross? He's in London. And even if he was here, Andrea would just deny it. Make me look like a jealous employee trying to cause trouble." She set down the watering can and looked at Richard with exhausted eyes. "I've worked for 5 families in the past 10 years. I've seen a lot of things. But this," her voice cracked, "these girls are broken, Marcus, and I don't know how to fix them." Richard wanted to tell her the truth, wanted to tear off the beard and say, "I'm here, I'm fixing it, I'm their father, and I'm going to save them." But he couldn't. Not yet. So instead, he said quietly, "You're doing more than you know, just by being here, just by caring." Brenda wiped her eyes. "I hope that's enough." Richard looked toward the house, toward the windows where his daughters were somewhere inside, scared and alone. "It has to be," he whispered, "because if it wasn't, if Brenda gave up, if she walked away, his daughters would have no one." And that terrified him more than anything. Day 9. Richard was raking leaves near the twins' bedroom window when he heard crying. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that doesn't want to be heard. He set down the rake and moved closer. Through the window, he could see Ella sitting on her bed, holding the stuffed bunny Brenda had rescued. Grace sat beside her, their foreheads pressed together. "I miss Mommy," Ella whispered. "Me too. Do you think Mommy would be sad if she knew we were scared all the time?" Richard's chest caved in. Grace's small voice answered, "I think Mommy would want us to be brave. But I don't feel brave. I feel small. Miss Brenda says we're not small. She says we're stronger than we know." Ella wiped her eyes. "I wish Miss Brenda was our Mommy instead." Richard had to turn away. He leaned against the wall, hand over his mouth, trying not to make a sound. His daughters wished someone else was their mother, not because Caroline was gone, but because the woman he'd brought into their lives had made them feel worthless. That afternoon, something shifted. Richard was cleaning the fountain when Andrea's voice carried through the open terrace doors. She was on the phone, her tone casual, almost amused. "No, Richard has no idea. He thinks I'm some kind of saint." She laughed. "Those girls were wild when I met them, spoiled, undisciplined. Someone had to teach them respect." Richard's hands stilled in the water. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being practical. Their father babies them. They needed structure. Fear works, trust me. They're already so much quieter, so much more obedient." She paused, listening. "The wedding's in 4 weeks. After that, this house is half mine, and those girls will learn who's really in charge." Richard felt something inside him go cold, not hot with rage. Cold, clear, focused. This wasn't just about discipline or control. Andrea was planning to own his life, his home, his daughters, and she'd been planning it all along. That evening, Brenda found him sitting under the oak tree, staring at nothing. She sat down beside him without asking. "You okay?" Richard shook his head. "No, ma'am, I'm not." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Brenda spoke, her voice barely audible. "I've been thinking about quitting." Richard's head snapped toward her. "What? I can't keep watching this. It's killing me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Every night, I go home and I can't sleep. I keep seeing their faces, hearing their voices, wondering if today's the day she really hurts them." "You can't leave them." "I know," Brenda's voice broke. "That's the problem. I know I can't, but staying means watching them suffer and being powerless to stop it." Richard looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had no reason to care, who had nothing to gain, who was breaking herself to protect children that weren't hers. "What if?" Richard started, then stopped. "What if what?" He took a breath. "What if you're not powerless?" Brenda frowned. "What do you mean? What if someone was watching, gathering proof, building a case so solid that when the truth came out, she'd have nowhere to hide?" Brenda stared at him. "Are you saying?" Richard held her gaze. I'm saying maybe you're not alone in this. Understanding slowly dawned in her eyes. Who are you? She whispered. Richard's throat tightened. Someone who cares about those girls more than anything in this world. Brenda studied his face, the fake beard, the brown contacts, the weathered skin, but she was looking past all of it now, looking at his eyes, and in his eyes she saw the truth. Oh my God, she breathed. Richard put a finger to his lips. Not yet, he said quietly. Soon, but not yet. Brenda's hand covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. How long have you been? 9 days. And she doesn't know? No. Brenda let out a shaky laugh that was half sob. You came back for them. I never left. They sat there as the sun set, the truth hanging between them like a sacred thing. Finally, Brenda whispered, What do you need me to do? Richard looked toward the house. Keep protecting them. Just a little longer. Can you do that? Brenda nodded, her jaw set. As long as it takes. Good. Richard's voice went hard. Because this ends soon, and when it does, I need you standing with them. I will be. I promise. Richard stood, picked up his tools. As he walked away, Brenda called after him softly. Mr. Ross? He turned. Her eyes were fierce now. Determined. Give her hell. Richard's smile was cold. I intend to. Day 12. Richard arrived before dawn, like always. But something felt different. The house was too quiet. He moved toward the side entrance and stopped. Through the window, he could see a light on in the living room. Someone was awake. He crept closer. Andrea stood in the middle of the room, holding something in her hands. A photo album. Caroline's photo album. Richard's heart stopped. He watched as Andrea flipped through the pages, pictures of Caroline pregnant with the twins, Caroline holding newborn Ella and Grace, Caroline in the garden teaching them to plant roses. Every precious memory. Andrea's face was cold, disgusted. Then she walked to the fireplace and threw the album in. Richard's body moved before his mind could stop it. He was at the door, his hand on the handle, ready to burst in, to stop her, to scream. But then he heard footsteps on the stairs. Miss Andrea, Ella's small voice, trembling in the darkness. Andrea spun around. What are you doing awake? I heard something. I got scared. Andrea's eyes narrowed. Go back to bed. But I smelled. Ella's voice broke when she saw the fireplace. Is something burning? Nothing that concerns you. Ella stepped closer, saw the corner of the album in the flames. Her face went white. No, that's Mummy's book. It was taking up space. No! Ella lunged forward, but Andrea grabbed her arm, yanked her back hard. Don't you dare touch that fire. Ella was sobbing now, reaching toward the flames. Please, please, those are the only pictures we have. Please. Andrea's grip tightened. Your mother is dead, Ella. Dead. And you need to stop living in the past. Let me go. Let me go. You want to end up like her? Weak? Pathetic? So focused on feelings that she couldn't even watch the road? The words hit like a fist. Ella went completely still. What? She whispered. Your mother died because she was careless, distracted. She got what she deserved. Ella's scream shattered the night. You're a liar. You're evil. I hate you. Andrea's hand flew across Ella's face. The slap echoed through the room. Ella stumbled backward, hand on her cheek, eyes wide with shock. Outside, Richard's vision went red. His hand crushed the door handle. Every muscle in his body screamed to move, to protect, to destroy the woman who just struck his daughter. But then, Ella. Brenda appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her nightgown. She flew down, putting herself between Andrea and Ella. Don't you touch her. Andrea's eyes flashed. Excuse me? I said don't touch her. Brenda's voice shook, but she didn't back down. I don't care who you think you are. You don't get to hit a child. She needs to learn respect. She needs to be loved. Brenda's voice cracked. She's 6 years old and she just watched you burn the only memories she has of her mother. Andrea stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. You're fired. Fine. Pack your things. Get out of this house. Now. Fine. Brenda's jaw set. But I'm taking Ella and Grace with me. Like hell you are. Then call the police. Let them see that handprint on her face. Let them hear what you just said about their mother. The room went silent. Andrea's eyes narrowed to slits. You have no proof. I have a voice, and I'll use it. They stood there, locked in a battle of wills. Finally, Andrea smiled, cold, calculated. You really think Richard will believe you over me? His fiancée? The woman he's planning to marry? She laughed. You're nothing, Brenda. A maid. Replaceable. Forgettable. Brenda's voice dropped to a whisper. We'll see about that. Andrea's smile faded. She looked at Ella, who was pressed against Brenda's side, trembling. Fine, you can stay. For now. Andrea's voice went deadly quiet. But if you ever speak to me like that again, I'll make sure you never work in this city again. Understood? Brenda didn't answer. Andrea turned and walked upstairs, heels clicking against the hardwood. The moment she disappeared, Brenda dropped to her knees and pulled Ella into her arms. It's okay, baby. It's okay. She burned Mummy's pictures, Ella sobbed. All of them are gone. I know. I know. I hate her. I hate her so much. Shh. It's going to be okay. I promise. Outside, Richard stood frozen, hands shaking, chest heaving, rage burning through every vein. He'd just watched his daughter get slapped, watched his late wife's memory destroyed, watched a woman he'd planned to marry reveal herself as a monster, and he'd done nothing. He'd stood there, hidden, helpless. Because the moment he revealed himself, the plan fell apart. The evidence disappeared. Andrea would lawyer her way out of everything. So he stood there in the darkness and let his daughter cry, and hated himself for it. Back in his motel room an hour later, Richard sat on the floor, back against the wall. The recording device sat beside him. He'd captured everything, every word, every sound, every cruel, vicious second, but it didn't feel like enough. His phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Good morning, darling. Just wanted to say I love you. The girls are doing wonderfully. Miss you so much. Richard stared at the message. Then he typed back slowly. Love you too. Can't wait to come home. He hit send. Then he stood up, walked to the mirror, and made a promise to the man staring back. 5 more days. 5 more days of evidence. And then Andrea White would learn what happened when you touched the wrong man's children. The next morning, Richard arrived at the house with his heart in his throat. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ella's face. The shock, the pain, the betrayal. He knocked on the back door. Brenda answered. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying. Morning, she said quietly. Morning. They didn't say anything else. They didn't need to. Richard worked near the house all morning, waiting. Around 9 a.m., the twins came outside. They moved slowly, like they were walking through water. Grace held Ella's hand. Ella had a red mark on her cheek, still visible. Richard's hands clenched around the rake. The girls sat on the porch steps, not playing, not talking, just sitting. After a few minutes, Brenda came out with juice boxes and crackers. She sat down between them. How are you feeling, sweetheart? She asked Ella softly. Ella didn't answer. Brenda wrapped an arm around her. It's okay if you don't want to talk. Miss Brenda? Grace's small voice. Yes, baby? Is Daddy ever coming home? Richard's throat closed. Brenda's voice shook. Yes. Soon. Will he be mad at us? Mad at you? Why would he be mad? Because we made Miss Andrea angry. Because we're bad. Brenda pulled both girls close. Listen to me. You are not bad. You are good and kind and brave. What happened last night was not your fault. Do you understand me? Ella finally spoke, her voice hollow. She burned Mummy's pictures. I know. All of them. Every single one. I know, baby. Now we can't remember what she looked like. Brenda's tears fell. You'll always remember. She's in your heart. No one can burn that away. Ella leaned against Brenda's shoulder. I wish you were our mom. Richard had to walk away before they saw him break. That afternoon, Richard found Brenda alone in the garden, pulling weeds with shaking hands. He knelt beside her. You didn't sleep either, he said quietly. No. They worked in silence for a moment. Then Brenda spoke, her voice raw. I almost left last night. After Andrea went upstairs, I almost packed my things and walked out. Why didn't you? Because Ella grabbed my hand, and she whispered, Please don't leave us. You're the only one who's nice. Brenda's voice broke. How do you walk away from that? You don't. But I'm so tired. Her shoulders shook. I'm so tired of watching them hurt and not being able to fix it. Richard set down his tools. You are fixing it, more than you know. How? By giving them juice and crackers? By hugging them after someone else breaks them? By being there? By not giving up? By showing them that someone in this world thinks they matter? Brenda wiped her eyes. It doesn't feel like enough. It's everything. She looked at him. Really looked at him. When? She whispered. When does this end? Soon. Richard's voice went hard. Very soon. How soon? Saturday. There's an engagement party. Andrea's invited everyone who matters to her. She wants to show off her perfect life, her perfect family. Brenda's eyes widened. You're going to expose her in front of everyone. Richard's jaw set. She wants a performance? I'll give her one. She'll never forget. What do you need me to do? Be there. With the girls. When everything falls apart, they're going to need you. Brenda nodded slowly. I'll be there. That evening, as the sun set, Richard watched through the window as Brenda tucked the twins into bed. She sang to them softly. The same lullaby Caroline used to sing. Ella and Grace held hands across the space between their beds. Their eyes were closed, but Richard could see their lips moving. Praying, maybe, or just trying to survive another night. Brenda kissed their foreheads, turned off the light, and closed the door gently. Richard stood there in the growing darkness, watching his daughters sleep. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I let this happen. But it ends Saturday. I swear to God, it ends. Somewhere in the house, Andrea was probably on the phone, planning her perfect party, her perfect life. She had no idea what was coming. No idea that the gardener trimming her roses had been recording every word, documenting every cruelty, building a case that would destroy her. Saturday was 3 days away. 3 more days of pretending. 3 more days of watching his daughters suffer. And then the whole world would see who Andrea White really was. And Richard Ross would make sure she never hurt another child again. Friday morning, one day before the engagement party. Richard arrived at the house to find it transformed. White tents were going up in the backyard. Florists carried arrangements inside. Caterers unloaded trucks. Andrea stood in the middle of it all, directing everything like a general commanding an army. She looked radiant, excited, completely in control. Richard kept his head down and worked on the far side of the garden, staying out of her way. Around noon, he heard Andrea's voice calling from inside. Girls, come here, now. Richard moved closer to the window. Ella and Grace appeared, walking slowly down the stairs. Andrea stood in the living room, hands on her hips. Tomorrow is very important, she said. Important people are coming. The governor, business partners, family, friends. And you two are going to be perfect. Understood? The twins nodded. I want you to practice with me, right now. Andrea's smile was thin. When I introduce you to our guests, you're going to say, we love our new mother very much. Say it. Silence. Say it. Grace's voice came out barely above a whisper. We love our new mother very much. Again. With feeling. We love our new mother very much. Andrea's eyes narrowed. Ella, you're not saying anything. Ella stared at the floor. Look at me. Ella lifted her chin. The red mark on her cheek had faded, but Richard could still see it. Say it. Ella's voice was hollow. We love our new mother very much. Andrea smiled. Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear tomorrow. You'll wear the white dresses I bought. You'll smile. You'll be charming. And you will not embarrass me. Clear? Yes, Miss Andrea. Good. Now go practice in your room. I want to hear it 20 times. Each. The girls disappeared upstairs. Richard stood there, recording device running, capturing every word. Tomorrow. It all ended tomorrow. That afternoon, Brenda found him sitting under the oak tree. She sat down beside him without speaking. They stayed like that for a long time. Finally, Brenda broke the silence. She's making them rehearse lines, like they're actors in a play. I know. I heard. They're going to parade those babies in front of everyone tomorrow. Use them as props to prove what a good stepmother she is. Richard's jaw tightened. Not for long. Brenda looked at him. Are you sure about this? About exposing her in front of all those people? Yes. It's going to be brutal. Good. Richard's voice went cold. She deserves brutal. Brenda was quiet for a moment. What happens after? After everyone knows? She leaves. Forever. And my daughters get their lives back. And me? Richard turned to her. What about you? Do I leave too? After all this is over? Richard's throat tightened. Is that what you want? Brenda's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what I want. I just know I can't imagine walking away from them. Not after everything. Then don't. What? Don't walk away. Richard's voice softened. Brenda, you've protected my daughters when I couldn't. You've stood between them and darkness. You've given them love when they had none. He paused. They need you, and if you're willing, I'd like you to stay. Not as a maid, as family. Brenda's hand covered her mouth. You mean that? Every word. She let out a shaky breath. Okay, I'll stay. Richard nodded. Thank you. They sat there as the afternoon light turned golden. Tomorrow's going to change everything, Brenda whispered. Yes, it is. Are you scared? Richard thought about that. No, I'm ready. That evening, Richard watched as Brenda tucked the twins into bed one more time. Miss Brenda? Ella's small voice in the darkness. Yes, sweetheart? Do you think Daddy will come home soon? Brenda's voice cracked. Yes, baby. Very soon. Tomorrow? Maybe. Grace spoke up. I hope he comes to the party. I don't want to do it without him. I know. But remember, even when you can't see your daddy, he's always thinking about you, always protecting you, even when you don't know it. Ella was quiet for a moment. Miss Brenda? Yes? I think God sent you to us. When Mommy went to heaven, I think God said, those girls need someone. And he sent you. Brenda's tears fell. Maybe he did, sweetheart. Maybe he did. She kissed their foreheads, whispered goodnight, and closed the door. Outside the window, Richard stood in the shadows, his own tears streaming down his face. Tomorrow, his daughters would see him again. Tomorrow, they'd know he never left. Tomorrow, Andrea White's perfect world would crumble, and his family, broken, wounded, but still breathing, would begin to heal. Back in his motel room that night, Richard stared at his reflection. Tomorrow, he'd take off the beard for the last time. Tomorrow, Richard Ross would come back from the dead, and when he did, everyone would see the truth. His phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Can't wait for tomorrow, darling. Everything's perfect. The girls are going to make you so proud. I wish you could be here. Richard stared at the message. Then he typed slowly. I'll be there. I promise. He hit send, set the phone down, and smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. Tomorrow, Andrea. Tomorrow, you'll see just how close I've been all along. Saturday afternoon. The estate was filled with people. 50 guests stood on the terrace under white tents, business partners, society figures, family, friends. A string quartet played softly. Champagne glasses glittered in the sunlight. Andrea stood at the center of it all in a royal blue dress, radiant and smiling. Ella and Grace stood beside her in matching white dresses, looking like porcelain dolls. Beautiful, fragile, breakable. Richard worked in the background, trimming hedges, keeping his head down. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. Daniel Chen stood among the guests, positioned near the terrace doors, watching, ready. Andrea tapped her champagne glass with a spoon. The crowd fell silent. Thank you all for being here to celebrate this beautiful moment, she began, her voice warm and gracious. Richard and I are so grateful for your love and support. She placed her hands on the twins' shoulders, and I'm especially thankful for these two precious angels who've welcomed me into their lives with open hearts. Richard's jaw clenched. Open hearts. She had no idea what those words meant. Girls, Andrea said sweetly, would you like to say something to our friends? Ella and Grace stood frozen. Go ahead, Andrea prompted, her smile tight. Grace's voice came out small and rehearsed. We love our new mother very much. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Andrea beamed. Then she gestured toward the house. Let's go inside for a moment, girls. I want to show everyone the family photos. They moved toward the French doors. Grace walked carefully, trying not to trip on her dress. But as they passed the refreshment table, her foot caught on the tablecloth. She stumbled, her hand shot out to catch herself, and knocked over a pitcher of cranberry juice. Red liquid splashed everywhere. Across the white tablecloth, across the stone terrace, across Andrea's royal blue dress. The crowd gasped. Time seemed to stop. Andrea looked down at the stain spreading across her dress. Her face transformed. The sweet mask cracked. Pure rage emerged. You clumsy little, she hissed. Grace's eyes went wide with terror. I'm sorry, Miss Andrea. I didn't mean... Didn't mean. Andrea's voice was venomous. You never mean anything, do you? You're just careless and stupid. She grabbed Grace's arm, yanked her close. The crowd stood frozen, shocked into silence. Andrea turned toward the house, dragging Grace with her. Through the open door, she grabbed a wooden spoon from the kitchen counter, raised it high above Grace's head. Grace closed her eyes, waiting for the blow. No. Brenda appeared from nowhere. She threw herself between Andrea and Grace, arms spread wide. The wooden spoon cracked against Brenda's forearm with a sickening sound. The crowd erupted in gasps. Andrea stumbled backward, the spoon still in her hand. How dare you? You're fired. Get out of my house. Brenda's voice was steady despite the pain. I don't care what you do to me. You won't touch her. This is my house, my family. I'll do whatever. That's enough. The voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Everyone turned. Marcus the gardener walked forward through the crowd. His work gloves hit the ground. He reached up, peeled away the fake beard, pulled out the brown contact lenses, stood up straight, dropping the hunched posture. Shocked, whispers rippled through the crowd. Richard? That's Richard Ross. Oh my God. Andrea's face went white. No. You're in London. This isn't. You can't be. Richard's voice was ice. Surprise, darling. I've been here the whole time. Ella's small gasp. Daddy? Grace whispered. Daddy's home. Both twins ran to him. Richard dropped to his knees, pulling them into his arms, holding them like he'd never let go. I'm here, babies. Daddy's here, and you're safe now. I promise you're safe. Andrea's voice shook. Richard, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. Brenda, she attacked me. The children are just confused. Richard stood, keeping his daughters behind him. He pulled out his phone. Would you like to hear what it really looks like? He pressed play. Andrea's voice filled the terrace through the speaker system. Those brats need to learn their place. Fear works better than love. I'll make them call me mother whether they want to or not. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Another clip. Your mother is dead, Ella. Dead. And you need to stop living in the past. She got what she deserved. Gasps. Horrified whispers. Another. The sound of a slap. Ella's scream. Andrea's cold voice. You need to learn respect. Richard played clip after clip. 2 weeks of evidence. 2 weeks of cruelty. 2 weeks of psychological torture laid bare for everyone to hear. Andrea lunged for the phone. Turn that off. This is illegal. You recorded me without... In my own home, Richard said coldly. Protecting my own children. Every lawyer in New York has confirmed it's admissible. Daniel stepped forward. I'm Mr. Ross's attorney. Miss White, you have exactly 1 hour to remove your belongings from this property. The engagement is terminated. All wedding plans are cancelled. And if you ever come near these children again, every recording, every witness testimony, every piece of evidence will be made public and turned over to authorities. Andrea looked around wildly. Her mother stood crying in the crowd. Her friends backed away, her perfect image crumbling in real time. Richard, please, she whispered. I can change. I'll get help. Therapy. Richard's voice was final. The time for help was before you terrorized my daughters, before you destroyed my late wife's memory, before you showed me exactly who you are. He gestured to security. Escort her out. As they took her arms, Andrea twisted back, her voice rising to a scream. You'll regret this. All of you. I'll sue. I'll destroy you. Richard's voice was quiet. Deadly. You already tried to destroy the most precious things in my life. You failed. Now get out of my house. They led her away, her screams fading as she disappeared inside. The terrace fell silent. Richard turned to his daughters. Ella and Grace stood there, tears streaming down their faces. Is she really gone, Daddy? Ella whispered. Forever, baby. I promise. Grace threw her arms around his waist. You came back. You really came back. I never left, sweetheart. I was always here, always watching, always protecting you. Ella looked up at him, her voice small. We thought you didn't know. We thought you didn't see. Richard's voice broke. I saw everything, and I'm so sorry I didn't stop it sooner. I'm so sorry you had to be scared for even 1 day. You're not mad at us? Mad at you? Richard knelt down, cupped their faces in his hands. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You are brave and strong and perfect, exactly as you are. They collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Not from fear this time. From Relief. From release. From finally being safe. Richard looked up. Brenda stood a few feet away, cradling her injured arm, tears streaming down her face. He stood slowly, still holding his daughter's hands. Brenda. She wiped her eyes. I should go. Let you have time with your family. Wait. Richard walked toward her, the twins following. He looked at this woman who'd risked everything for children who weren't hers. You saved them, he said quietly. When I couldn't, you stood between them and darkness every single day. Brenda shook her head. I just did what anyone. No. Richard's voice was firm. Not anyone. Most people would have looked away, stayed silent, protected themselves. He paused. But you protected them. You gave them love when they had none. Hope when everything felt hopeless. Grace tugged on Brenda's dress. Don't leave us, Miss Brenda. Please don't leave. Ella joined in. You're the only one who was nice. The only one who made us feel safe. Brenda knelt down, gathering them both into her arms. I'm not going anywhere, sweet girls. I promise. Richard's throat tightened. Brenda Thompson, I'm not asking you to be their maid. I'm asking you to stay as family, as the woman who actually protected my daughters when it mattered most. Brenda looked up at him, tears flowing freely. You mean that? Every word. She stood, the twins still clinging to her. Then yes, I'll stay. The guests began leaving quietly, giving the family space. Daniel approached Richard, put a hand on his shoulder. You did it, brother. We did it. What now? Richard looked at his daughters. At Brenda, at the home that had been a prison but could be a sanctuary again. Now, we heal. That evening, as the sun set, the four of them sat in the garden, the same garden where Caroline had taught the twins to plant roses, where Richard had hidden for 2 weeks, watching his world fall apart, where Brenda had stood guard, refusing to let evil win. Ella and Grace sat between Richard and Brenda, holding both their hands. Daddy, Grace's small voice. Yes, baby? Are we going to be okay now? Richard squeezed her hand. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be more than okay. Ella looked up at the sky, where the first stars were appearing. Do you think Mummy knows? About Miss Brenda? About what happened? Richard's voice was soft. I think your mummy sent Miss Brenda to us. I think she knew you needed someone to watch over you. Brenda's tears fell. I like to think that's true. They sat there as darkness fell, the four of them together, broken pieces beginning to fit back into something whole. It wouldn't be easy. The twins would need time to heal. Therapy, love, patience. But they had time now. They had safety. They had each other. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. Not with grand gestures or perfect words, but with the simple truth that you're not alone anymore. That someone stayed. That love, real love, doesn't give up. Even in the darkness, even when it's hard, even when it breaks you. Real love shows up, and it doesn't leave. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever had to fight for someone who couldn't fight for themselves, if you've ever wondered if love really does win in the end, then you know this story was for you. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you believe kindness comes from the heart. And remember, sometimes God puts people exactly where they need to be, even when it breaks them. Especially then, because that's when miracles happen. That's when healing begins. That's when love wins.